You're listening to the A Bit From Within podcast with Felicia Marty. There is something that you should know about me if you don't know it already, and that is, but I love books. I'm one of those people that gets comfort from having books around. Today, I thought that we could actually do the long-coming book episode. So some of my favorite books, some of my most, the books that I either go back to again and again, or have really inspired me along my journey. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the A Bit From Within podcast. I'm Felicia, and here I am, sitting in my closet, coming to you, actually feeling so excited today, almost like I am getting to meet an old friend for a cup of coffee. That's kind of how I'm feeling about sitting down and recording today. It's felt like a little bit of a long time coming because normally I record on Mondays, and this week just has taken a lot of unexpected twists and turns that I'm just kind of trying to roll with. So feeling like it's okay to change things up a little bit, feeling like I can only do the best that I can, and that is sitting down to share with you guys right now. And today I thought we could do something a little bit different than normal. You know, normally this podcast is me sharing a bit from within, and we have our Astro Check In, and we do our card drawing, and it's much more personal stories from what's going on in my life. And today I thought that we could actually do the long-coming book episode. So some of my favorite books, some of my most the books that I either go back to again and again, or have really inspired me along my journey. And I grabbed a bunch of them to bring them in here. And I am sure that there are some that I will think of while we are talking, or that I will miss and I'll have to follow up later. But I am very excited to share all of that with you. But first, I'll also just share a bit from within that I'm feeling pretty tired right now. And this past week has shown me a continued evolution of how much I am fighting to find surrender in my life. And the thing that I've been thinking about is just how hard I have to try to let go, and how even in the trying, there's not a lot of let go that's happening. So that's something that I definitely have no answers for, that I'm going to continue to kind of soul search on. And I have this sneaky feeling that really figuring that out for myself is going to be a big part of 2021 for me. It's kind of the unexpected lesson that probably, to be honest, I wish I didn't have to deal with right now, but it's coming up full force. So if that resonates with you at all, just know that I'm there with you. I'm figuring it out too. And anything that I figure out or learn along the way that I feel like I can share that would be helpful, I promise that I will. But in the meantime, you're just going to have to hear me talk about books today because I literally have nothing else in me. Let's jump into the Astro Check In because I do feel excited to share about that. One of the things that I wanted to do this year is each month I want to touch on one of the houses. And it's a really good way to get a vibe for learning astrology a little bit better. So essentially, when we look at a natal chart or a astrological chart, it's kind of like a snapshot of where all of the planets are at any given moment. And so when you're born, it's really important with your natal chart to know what time of day you were born, because that determines your ascendant. That moment that you took your first breath, you came into this world, that is your rising sign. And that sets off the series of houses, which is basically how each of the houses is divided up around your chart. So you always have 12 houses in your chart, just like there are 12 zodiac signs. And while the houses are just numbered, so first house, second house, third house, so on until 12th house, they do kind of correlate, each house kind of has a corresponding energy to the zodiac sign that is associated with it. So Aries is very commonly associated with the first house. Aries is the first sign in the zodiac, so the first house has a lot of similar themes to Aries. And it goes so on. So second house is very similar, has a lot of Taurus themes. Third is a lot of Gemini themes. Fourth is a lot of Cancer, and so on. And where it gets a little bit confusing and it starts to get a bit of an extra layer is that in your chart, you don't necessarily have each of those houses in the same order. So, for example, I am a Virgo rising. So Virgo is the kind of like, I have first house in Virgo. So even though Aries themes are very commonly associated with the first house, my first house is in Virgo. See, it gets a lot more confusing. So if I just lost you, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. But why I'm bringing this up is I think that there's a lot of fun in learning about your houses. It brings this new deepening of awareness to astrology and also kind of helps you draw more parallels. So let's see if I can figure out a really good example here. Okay, so I'm just going to use a personal example because it's a little bit easier. So I mentioned before, I'm a Virgo rising, but I was born in the summer. My birthday's in June, and so I am a Cancer. And Cancer is usually known for being kind of homey, emotional, a nurturer, a mother, all of those kind of things. And it's interesting for me because where Cancer is in my chart is in the 10th house. So my sun is in my 10th house. And the 10th house, which is usually more associated with Capricorn. So Capricorn, as you guys know, because we just kind of been talking about this a ton because it was Capricorn season recently, all about ambition, success, very focused. And so it wouldn't be surprising to know that 10th house, normally associated with Capricorn, governs career and ambition and a lot of similar things that are commonly associated with Capricorn. And so for me, having my sun in Capricorn in the 10th house is going to look a lot different than somebody who's, let's say that your Cancer was in your 4th house, which 4th house is commonly associated with Cancer as well. So that would be the part of the chart that's all about home and family and where you belong and what kind of house you want to live in and what your relationship with your mother is like, and a lot of things around healing and things like that. So if somebody has their 4th house or their sun sign in the 4th house, they're going to show up a lot more drawn to home. They might be a lot more of a homebody. I'm also a homebody, but I definitely, if you look at my life, there's a lot of evidence that I am very career oriented. I very much care about being successful, having a lot of ambition, showing up on a lot of those career projects. In fact, it's funny because I was just sharing with a friend, like, I have such a deep longing for a family, and yet here I am almost in my mid-30s, and I have still just chosen work so much. Even Dave and I, we have been kind of joking about how maybe as we continue on, like, he's going to be more of like my house husband and just make sure that the dishes are done and that we're fed and all of that stuff. And part of me was like feeling like rejecting that a little bit because, well, there's probably a million reasons why we don't have to go into right now. But this other part of me was kind of like, had this gentle knowing inside of me that's like, yeah, as much as I love being in the kitchen and love being a nurturer, I also have this other part of me that just wants to do and accomplish and help people, and where I really take a lot of joy in working. In fact, the other night I was up at 11:30 just working away on this new guide that I'm trying to put together right now. And Dave was looking at me and he's like, why are you working right now? And I'm like, I enjoy working. I do. I love what I do. And so does that kind of make sense? All of that is just to say that this year I thought that while we are also talking about the sun moving into different areas, that I could also include the parts of that house. So if you are learning astrology more, or if you want to kind of dabble into any of this, that you can just kind of have that, the second pass, or like a second way of looking at things, or know that there's kind of a different association there as well. And I thought that would be really fun. So today actually is the day that the sun is moving from being in Capricorn for the past month and is moving into the sign of Aquarius. Now, Aquarius, everyone thinks is the sign of the water. Well, it is the sign of the water bearer, but everyone thinks because it's the sign of the water bearer that it is also a water sign, but it is not a water sign. Aquarius is an air sign. It has all of the water, but it also throws it right back out of its barrel. So Aquariuses are not very emotional in the same way that water signs can be. With Aquarius, there's much more of that, the things that we commonly associate with air, which is socialization, change, intellect, visionary, all of those kind of airy things. Aries are extremely social. They can be also known for being a little bit unconventional. It's kind of like the kid in school who like beats to his own drum, or like breaks the status quo and doesn't really care. They're like a little bit of, they're going to do things their own way and they don't really mind about that. And in fact, they can't really help it. It's just who they are. Aquariuses are visionaries. So, there's a lot of that like kind of eccentric vibe to this, but there's also a lot of forward thinking. And that's one of the things that I love most about Aquarius is it's almost like we move from Capricorn, which is extremely hardworking and focused and driven and kind of has their eyes down on the paper. And then it's like Aquarius is that next moment where you're like, you look from your paper and you start looking up into the sky or up into the, I guess, ceiling if you're sitting in a classroom, and you just start to think about things on a new level. And so Aquarius, and how it's very similar, a lot of ties went in with the 11th house, is there's a huge humanitarian effort here with Aquarius. There's this where you start thinking about things on a more global level. You start not just thinking about yourself, but you start thinking about your community. You start thinking about the world that you live in, the social circles, the networks that you have. And with Aquarius, Aquariuses love to be social. They want to be connected to their friends. They want to talk. They want to be very connected in that way. And if you have a lot of planets in your 11th house, or there's things happening in the 11th house, this is going to be very similar in the sense that this is going to be governing your social network, your friends, how well connected you are, who you're hanging out with. If you're going to be having people that are really looking up to you, if you're going to have a lot of friends, like honestly, or if you're going to have a job where like you're going to be a part of a team and you're going to care about how the group functions together. And you're going to be a big part of that, a big player. The other thing with being visionary is there's this big sense of dreaming, hoping, idealism. In fact, one of my greatest friends growing up, definite Aquarius, born pretty soon, actually. His birthday's in a couple days. One of the most brilliant dreamers that I have ever met. These Aquariuses are very imaginative. They can come up with some of the most amazing ideas. The the thing that is nice for Aquarius energy is to have a little bit of that structure to actually like get their ideas up and going, because too much Aquarius energy or too much air energy can be all ideas and no follow through. But usually Aquariuses do have a little bit of that. Well, they have a lot of friends. They have a lot of people who, since they're talking about their ideas all the time, they probably have a lot of worker bees to help them actually accomplish those goals, which is great. So I don't know, hopefully that gives you a little bit of a picture. Like I said, we're moving into this time now. We're moving into Aquarius season where Sun is going to be in Aquarius. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a nice change of pace from Capricorn. Hopefully you did feel like you had time to be pretty practical. And now is the time to give way to that dreamer inside of you. So some of the ways that you can kind of embrace Aquarius self-care over the next, 4 weeks or so would be connecting with your friends, connecting with your social circle. Maybe you see if you can kind of be the ringleader of your group of friends and say like, okay, every day let's share this kind of a picture together, or let's get together and go for a social distance hike or whatever feels good. Even like just a Zoom girls night or guys night or whatever, play video games together. Like feel like you can interact with your social network. And, of course, with this air energy, any kind of creating that you do that feels intuitive for you is going to be great during this time. So if you are a painter, if you're a writer, if you're a musician, if you wouldn't even call yourself those things, but you enjoy doing them, do them. Oh man, it is. I'm just thinking of something slightly off topic that I'm going to share anyway. I was, of course, on TikTok, and this guy was sharing that he was talking to a friend, and he said, I love to paint. And the guy said, oh, well, are you any good? And he was thinking about how, like, if you shared with somebody like that you love to read, the first question that somebody asks you isn't like, oh, well, are you any good at reading? But when it comes to a lot of art, people expect that for you to love it, that you have to be so skilled at it. And that's not true. Like you can be a shitty painter and still love to paint. You can be, you have no sense of rhythm and still love to play piano or whatnot. And of course, if you love something, maybe you are more apt to learn the skills or learn what goes into making a great piece of art, but that doesn't have to be why you do something, right? You can do it just for you. And I am a huge advocate of that. So super huge for creativity this month. So tap into that creative outlet. Especially if like you struggle with sleeping or insomnia, a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, but especially if you have a lot of air in your chart, or if you're just kind of an airy person, it might mean that you just need to create more. You need to get some of your ideas out of your head so that you can reset your nervous system a little bit. Other things associated with Aquarius that are lovely is studying. Maybe you even want to like study the stars, something a little bit more unconventional, something a little bit outside the box. All of that would be wonderful right now. You could embrace being a little bit different, like dressing a little bit different. Maybe you want to wear socks that don't match one another, or you want to dye your hair pink or something like that. All of that is wonderful right now. And yeah, just be okay with being a little bit unconventional. I think that some people embrace that really well and some people really struggle with that. And we can all practice just being okay, being ourselves. So that is Aquarius. So if you love this stuff and you want a little bit of homework, then the homework is look up your natal chart and see if you have any planets that are in Aquarius, or if you have any planets that are in the 11th house. And then maybe you'll know this resonates with you a lot, or maybe you're like, I know why that doesn't resonate with me at all, because I don't have anything in those places. And if you don't know where to begin, you can easily get access to your natal chart for free on multiple sites. But my two favorites are astro.com, or the one that looks prettier, but they just have different reasons that they're great, is astro-charts.com. And you can type in your information and see a snapshot of where all the planets were when you were born, and it can be really fun. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll dive into book time. Okay, so there is something that you should know about me if you don't know it already, and that is I love books. And I would say that I probably love books more than I love reading books, which I feel slightly shameful admitting. But I love books. I'm one of those people that gets comfort from having books around. I have always organized my books kind of in like a color spectrum of some kind. And Dave helped me build this shelf in our office that kind of is far up on the wall that has all of my books, mostly my fiction books up there. And so there's several books up high that I couldn't go grab. So I have a stack of books here right now that I am excited to share that I love with you. But I just want you to know that I'm one of those people that I love books. I love books that I don't even finish. And I am not a person who feels obligated to finish a book if I have gotten what I need from it. There's been a small handful of books that I just get about halfway through and I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You can fight me on that. I'm okay with that. I'll hear you. I know there are some people who have to read books from front to back. I used to have this idea. I remember like it must have been when I was in like my early college days. I had this, or maybe it was even high school. I had this theory that our relationships with our books is kind of how we are in our relationships with other people. And how I saw that for myself is I was definitely okay with, like I said, ending a book before I finished it. And I could see that reflected in my friendships in a way that, like, when I felt like a relationship was complete, I had no problem with accepting that and moving on to things that did serve me or relationships that served me. And the other thing that I've noticed with that is like I can appreciate, I definitely have a huge appreciation for a wide variety of books, but I also don't feel like every book needs to be my friend. And I'm kind of like that with people too. Like I love people, I love connecting with people, but I also don't feel like I also know that I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I know that I don't need to be friends with everyone. So test that theory out. Maybe start to think about like your relationship with books and see if you can see some of your own either sense of loyalty or devotion or habits, interactions. See if you can see similarities there. Okay, you guys. So to kick us off, I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite authors, Miss Louise L. Hay. Now, I love Louise Hay. You guys have heard me talk about her before. She has this book called You Can Heal Your Life. And this is one of my favorite books, especially because the version that I got is this beautifully illustrated version of You Can Heal Your Life. And it's kind of like a semi hardback. It's not like a traditional hardback, but it's not a paper cover either. It's like a fusion. And in You Can Heal Your Life, you can see she has in the back kind of like the list of all of the different things that, you know, we might struggle with or have going on in our bodies that she suggests like a probable cause of what's happening inside of you, either emotionally or I guess like what you're feeling, what you're navigating, and then a new thought pattern to help correct that. So I'll find an example for you here. Coughs. Okay. So probable cause for coughs is a desire to bark at the world. See me, listen to me. And the new thought pattern is, I am noticed and appreciated in the most positive ways. I am loved. What I love about this book, You Can Heal Your Life, is she really talks a lot about the connection between what is going on in our thoughts and how it correlates to the world that we end up creating for ourselves. I found it extremely empowering, and all of her books and just her teachings they always come from a place of love, but they'll also kind of call you out on your shit. And she's a big advocator of deepening your relationship to yourself, like actually learning how to love yourself, which is why I think I'm attracted to a lot of her work. So You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And then also I have one by her that's called Heart Thoughts. And this is a favorite kind of book for me in the sense that I have a deep love for books that you can have laying around your house. Like I have some in my bedroom, some on my desk, some in the bathroom, some on a coffee table that you can just pick up at any point and flip to a page and get something you need from it. So with Heart Thoughts, there's just each page is a different category, and then it has a heart thought. So let me give you a sneak peek at this. Let's just flip to a random page. So this one is on opening to the new. And it says, all my experiences are right for me. And so on the left side of the page, it has a little quote that says, fear comes from not trusting the process of life to be there for you. The next time you are frightened, say, I trust the process of life to take care of me. And then it kind of has like her kind of expanded thoughts on that topic. And I just find that so helpful, like especially if you're going through something in particular, if you want to look up that category, or if you just need a little bit of inspiration, just a little bit of a heart thought. And this one is also beautiful. It's super colorful and is just candy for your eyes. So definitely highly recommend both of those books by Louise Hay. Kind of along that same idea of a book that you don't have to read from start to finish, but that you can just have around all the time. The Language of Letting Go by Melody Beattie. This one is like a big one for me. It's like the one that has been recommended to me by my mom. I think actually my first copy was given to me by my mom. And it's been recommended to me by several therapists that I've seen and worked with. And it's one that really hits home for me because it's a really amazing tool for people who are codependent and who are learning how to move through that for themselves and to find their own independence. And so it's basically like a little daily meditation book. So each day has a different meditation and thought for you to just consider and to help inspire you to hold your own. That book is a really great one also to use in your relationship or to bring to a meeting with a friend, or just to, like I said, to have around when you're feeling a little bit low. Sometimes that's when I find myself picking up those books the most, like when I just need a different thought. So highly, highly recommend. And it's one of those books that's also a great gift. So if you ever find like multiple copies of it, wonderful book to give and share with a friend. Speaking of books that are wonderful to give as presents, switched up slightly. This is a fiction book that I loved since the moment I first read it. I think when I started reading it, I could not put it down until it was finished. I think I stayed up until like 4 a.m. And that book is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. So amazing story. Paulo Paulo Coelho is a Brazilian author, so it was originally written in, I believe, in Portuguese. But I think that I was given this book, or I found it maybe my senior year of high school, maybe my first year of college, somewhere around there. But since then, it has been one of those books that I love. If I find an extra copy of it, I love to pick it up just because I love recommending it to other people. And giving people books is it's just such a great, I think it's a great gift. Receiving books is like one of the most amazing gifts. But The Alchemist is a wonderful story about self-discovery, about finding your destiny. And that's all I'm going to say about it, because if you need just a quick read or something just to kind of pick you up or just give you a different way to think about things, just something like that's a wonderful adventure, get The Alchemist, dive into it. You will not regret it. It's so, so good. Okay. Going back to, that was not in my stack of books here, in the bedroom, because my copy is in the office. But right now, I will tell you about my next book that I have in my hand right now. And this is a book called Lunar Abundance. I will never forget when I found this book. It was one of those moments where, okay, so I'll tell you something else about myself. When I am really exhausted, like I've been, like had to wake up early, had to work, like had to do a bunch of stuff, or had to process a lot, or I don't know, work hard or whatever. And not the kind of tired where like you just need to go to bed, but just like mentally tired. I always somehow end up at a Barnes & Noble during these moments, and usually a Target as well. Usually both, Target and Barnes & Noble, but more so Barnes & Noble. And it is just one of those places that you can walk around. And I guess I feel a little bit rejuvenated when I'm there. And I'll never forget when I found this book. I was at a Barnes & Noble, and I had kind of walked past all these books, and I didn't see anything. And I like had walked away, and I literally felt this pull that was like, you need to go back. There's a book there for you. And as soon as I turned the corner, I felt like, how could I have missed this the first time? It was one of those, like, it was front facing. So it wasn't just like the spine on the shelf. It was pretty obvious. And it's called Lunar Abundance. And I think what caught my eye the second time is that it has all of the moon phases on it. And so this book is by Ezzy Spencer. She is an Australian author, I believe. I'm pretty sure she's from down under. I can't see it on the side of the book right now. If I'm wrong about that, then I am deeply sorry. Nope, she lives in Sydney, Australia. Okay, I was right. But this book is just this brilliant, brilliant book. She's the first person that got me starting to actually think about the lunar cycles in a different way. And she teaches about it much differently than I do. She really breaks down all 8 of the moon's phases and talks about like which ones are yin and which ones are yang, and gives you kind of little exercises you can do to track the moon. It is a beautiful book, and it is very, very much a book that will help you heal, help you figure out what you're doing with your life, kind of get you regrounded. I love this. And actually, a funny story with my copy of this book, I was so excited about this book. You know, sometimes you find that book that you're just extremely thrilled about. And so David bought this for me because he was like, do you want me to buy you a book? I'm like, okay, I would love this book. So he buys this for me. And literally not more than 12 hours later, I was crawling into the bath because I love to read books in the bathtub. And freak accident, this book fell into the bathtub. And Dave, he came and rescued me, and he put a paper towel between every single one of the pages of this book and saved this book for me. And now I have this very wavy, beautiful version of this book, but I swear none of the pages were ruined, which is a miracle. So if you love all of this lunar stuff, definitely check out her book, Lunar Abundance. Okay, I've only got 2 more here. Maybe 3. The next one is a book called Wheels of Light by Anodea Judith. Anodea Judith is a PhD, and she has groundbreaking work in, especially in chakras. So this book, I was first introduced by, my Pilates teacher, actually. I wish I would have learned about it earlier. Anodea Judith also wrote the book that I think somewhat more common in the yoga sphere, called Eastern Body, Western Mind. And I do like that book also. I'd been told about that book probably like 12 years ago, but I found that book a little bit more heady, and I think that Wheels of Light is a little bit more digestible. And it really breaks down each of the chakras and talks about, what kind of makes up that chakra? What are the components of it? How do you balance that chakra? What are ways that you can use that chakra for your highest good? It has some different physical movements, different exercises, things like that, just different things that you can do for yourself. And so if you are into, what's happening on physical and spiritual levels, Anodea Judith is a really great place to start. So I recommend Wheels of Light over the other one, but you can pick your own. It's a book that, again, I just like to have on hand as I kind of continue to deepen my own spiritual practice and try to find balance in my life. And I also find it very helpful as a yoga teacher. So if you're a yoga teacher, wonderful, wonderful book to have on hand. Okay, and if you are still with me, I have saved my personal favorite for last, which is probably pretty controversial because it's a fiction book. And as we know, I think it's probably a lot easier to sell somebody not sell as in I want you to go buy these things, but at least it's probably easier to market nonfiction books to a wider population than a fiction book, because we all have something very different that we like in fiction books. But there is this author that I absolutely love, and her name is Sarah Addison Allen. And I can't even tell you which of her books is my favorite, because I think there could probably be a good case for all of them being my favorite. I started with The Sugar Queen, I believe. But she also has Garden Spells, The Girl Who Chased the Moon, First Frost, Lost Lake, and The Peach Keeper. Oh, I love The Peach Keeper. So she has quite a handful of books. They're all independent of each other, except for First Frost. First Frost is connected to Garden Spells, I believe. But the rest of them are kind of standalone books, so you could start with any one of them. Sarah Addison Allen writes these they're like a mixture of love stories, but not in a romantic novel way, but also kind of like coming of age stories and self-discovery. Like the characters are learning a lot about themselves through the way that they're navigating the world. But all of her books also have just a very kind of light version of magical realism to it. So the characters all have these kind of like magical characteristics, but don't think like fantasy. Like it's not like fantastical. It's like if if a human could really have magical powers, like all of these would be kind of very realistic ways that they would have magical powers. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But her characters are just amazing. Her books are amazing. I absolutely love all her work. In fact, I am just dying for her next novel to come out. Whenever that is, I will patiently wait for it. But yes, did I also say She Has Lost Lake? That one is probably my least favorite of all of them. But The Peach Keeper, Sugar Queen, The Girl Who Chased the Moon, First Frost. I'm just repeating all of the same ones. I literally love her books. For me, when I read fiction, I just tend to like something that's just not so heavy. I'm very much an empath, and I actually was just listening to this therapist talk about how people who tend to like to rewatch movies, or who like to know the endings before the beginning, or like before they get into it, which is totally me. I have reread all of these books plenty of times, and actually most of my favorite books I've reread before. She was saying that this is actually a coping mechanism for anxiety, and I never heard it put that way before, but it made a lot of sense as she described it. It is much easier and more comforting to move through things that you know than to experience things that you don't know. And so there's a little bit of that for me. Like, I tend to like the kind of books that aren't going to emotionally disturb me. I tend to like things that are more comforting for my soul, which I think you can probably tell based on my books here. And there are so many books, you guys. I could probably do a book episode, like, I don't know, once a quarter. Maybe I will. You guys let me know how you liked this, and if you've read any of these books, if you have suggestions for books that you think are must-haves that I need to have. I have to mention one more. I just got done reading, it was the audio version. Oh gosh. Okay, now that I've opened the can of audiobooks, I also have to say, like, anything by Brené Brown, I absolutely love. The Power of Vulnerability was life-changing for me. But I just got done listening to the majority of it. Now I'm on like the lesson section of this book called Feel Free to Prosper by Marilyn Jeanette. And she is amazing. I'm very, very much into breaking through the limited beliefs that we have. And we hold ourselves back so much because of how we were raised, the areas that we grew up in. And we all have so much subconscious programming that goes on inside of us, especially when it comes to what we believe we're capable of with wealth and prosperity and success and all of that. And so Feel Free to Prosper, it honestly changed the way that I look at my finances. It's an ongoing journey. Of course, it's not just like you read something once, then it changes you forever, although it kind of does. Sometimes you read something and it kind of does change you forever. And I've read a lot of different stuff on prosperity and abundance thinking before, but this book is different. It is really special. She gives a lot of very clear examples, which I think are very, very, very helpful. So I listened to it as an audible book. And so if you like that, definitely check it out. And yeah, so like I was saying, if you have any suggestions for either audiobooks or books or whatever, please let me know. I'd love to hear them. And with that, I think it's definitely time to draw a card for today, close today's podcast. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for tuning in and letting me share this deep love of books in my life. And hopefully some of those sound interesting to you. So, drawing a card here. This card is from the Affirmators deck. Maturity. I make peace with the tough relationships of my past. I probably would have skipped the pain they came with, but I'm grateful for the lessons they brought me. because of those tough relationships, I can look back at the mosaic of my life and see the value even in the broken pieces. That really resonates with me right now. I don't know if that resonates with you. Obviously, I don't think it very much connects to the books in a direct way, but going through relationships is really tough, whether you are in a romantic relationship or whether you just have friendships or family relationships. Relationships are really hard, and when they're hard, you don't want to be going through it, but they teach you a lot. And in fact, I think that probably for most of us, more than romantic relationships being these things that we see in movies, these romantic love stories, and they're more these opportunities for deep self-discovery and learning the lessons. So I resonate with that, and I think it's good to be grateful for that. Definitely resonates with me. I don't know about you guys. But all right, you guys, so that is it for this week. Next week we're moving towards the full moon, so more information on that. If you want to subscribe to A Bit From Within on Patreon, I'm going to be sending out the full moon guide here shortly. And there's some fun stuff coming down the pipe. I'm trying to put together right now something really special that can be for Valentine's Day. So keep your eyes and ears open for that. I promise it probably won't be too cliche. And if there's anything that you have been needing or want to connect on, please know I am always here, especially during this month of Aquarius, where we should be reaching out to our community. If you feel like you are included in this community, which I so feel like you are, and you want to share a bit from within or give me something you think I should talk about or you'd like to hear me talk about or teach on, please know I'm so open to that. Take this as your sign to do it. Shoot me that message today. All right. Until next time, you guys, take care.